Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first of all, let me congratulate the Honorable Minister of Finance and his technical team for contributing to the preparation of the 2024 budget, one of the largest budgets to date. This budget, Mr. Speaker, addresses the current needs of our nation and its people. The budget positions Guyana for a transition into a modern country. It offers support, benefits, and opportunities for all. The theme, staying the course, building prosperity for all, aligns with the philosophy for a one Guyana, where no one is left behind. Leadership, Mr. Speaker, is another key to success. In similar fashion as we refer to education as the key to success, leadership also is a factor. The People's Progressive Party Civic Administration is demonstrating the kind of leadership that represents the furtherance of the PPP Civic Manifesto promises and commitments to the people of our country. It allocates investments for sectors that will sustain our current and future generation. In reality, the People's Progressive Party administration is building out our economy and our country beyond 2030. The budget measures provide for people with disabilities, the pensioners, vulnerable groups, students, youths, women, farmers, the public servants, other professionals, the private sector, inclusive of Amerindian population. This is evidence that no one indeed is left behind. The Guyanese people can be assured that this government honors the manifesto promises on which they campaign to get into government. As such, the budget campaign on re-establishing the Because We Care grant to our school children, which was denied them for approximately 5 years. Mr. Speaker, the cash grant today has been increased to $40,000. Added to that, we have retained and continued to deliver school uniform assistance to the students all across this country, in both private and public schools. That means that each school child is getting a monetary financial assistance, which is managed by their parents to ensure that there is no problem with further support for ensuring the children stay in school. Mr. Speaker, it's not only about financial support, but it's also about the students having a hot meal. It's not only about casinos, it's also about strip clubs. And when we finish this budget debate, Mr. Speaker, I will find some time to meet him at his popular strip club and we'll have a discourse. The Guyanese people can be assured also that pensioners will continue to enjoy the rebate on water and electricity and an increase in their pension this year from $33,000 to $36,000. Persons receiving support under the public assistance also receives now an increase from $16,000 to $19,000. Mr. Speaker, the public servants continue to enjoy increases under the People's Progressive Party civic government. as well as the threshold has been increased. It means that people today, including workers and parents and families, have more disposable income at their disposal. So this talk about small increases, it was small in your time, and you even made it smaller when you took away the pensioners' rebate and support for your water and electricity. Mr. Speaker, Guyanese families do not have to fear the removal of cash grants from their children any longer. They do not have to fear, the pensioners do not have to fear that they will be unable to pay their water or electricity bill any longer. That is assured under the People's Progressive Party civic government. Mr. Speaker, vulnerable groups benefits and support from the People's Progressive Party civic government is seen as excessive when they came into office. And that is why they trimmed the vulnerable group benefit and support during the last 5 years when they were in office, from 2015 to 2020. And they diverted those monies, Mr. Speaker, to add to their enhanced wannabe bushy lifestyle. That's what they did with the money. Mr. Speaker, Guyanese are wise. They've always been wise. And no amount of love verbally expressed in this House by the APNU AFC parliamentarians will ever get under the skin of the Guyanese population and the electorate. And that is why you will remain where you are in the opposition for a very long time. Mr. Speaker, as I turn my attention to Amerindian development, this year, if you look at a glance of the budget, and it's available publicly, you will see that $800 million is allocated for land titling. Mr. Speaker, $100 million will be also allocated for the hosting of the NTC meetings. And I'll get to the details as I go along. $3.4 million for the continuation of the presidential grant to villages. $1.2 billion for youth, Mr. Speaker, under the YEEP, or the popularly known CSO program. $147 million to promote Amerindian culture, heritage, traditions, and contribution to this nation. $100 million to support our scholarship students. And this is another way which our government continues to support the families, the household. It's not only about the salary you collect at the end of the month, but it's about all the other benefits and support that we have put together and packaged to assist the people of our country, including the Amerindians. Unlike the APNU AFC, who have abandoned their manifesto promises to the people and to the nation, the People's Progressive Party has stayed the course with respect to fulfilling manifesto promises on which we campaign. And the results is there to see. Mr. Speaker, land titling. The People's Progressive Party civic government is committed to protecting indigenous land rights and is demonstrated by designing and implementing the Amerindian land titling project. It is our government that has established that project. This year, as I mentioned before, $800 million will be used. But I want to draw to the attention of what is going to happen and what has happened already. Immediately upon resumption of office by our government, the land titling program was reactivated. And I'm proud of that, because within 2 years, that unit in the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs conducted 20 investigations that villages have applied for areas which they would like to have titled to them. 20 such investigations has been completed. Within less than 2 years, 7 villages were granted extension of land. Within 2 years, 8 demarcations were completed. Mr. Speaker, those that were granted extension, and I'll give you the names: Mashabo, Mainstay, Hobadiah, Hotukwai, Red Hill, Akuini, and Mokomoko. Those that have been demarcated: Kangaruma, Tasserine, Mashabo, Kapui, St. Monica, Mainstay, Upakari, and Arau. Mr. Speaker, the success story of land titling under the People's Progressive Party civic government for 2021 to 2023 exceed over and beyond the APNU-AFC period in office. Let the facts be told. We must never forget the struggles of the NTC in 2017, when they were fighting to reverse plans by the APNU-AFC government, when they established the Commission of Inquiry surrounding lands, claim of Amerindian land titling, and others. It also cost me, as the opposition member of parliament at that time, to lay in this house a motion calling for the revocation so that we can secure tenure security, land tenure security for indigenous people. The APNU-AFC had no intention to advance land titling for Amerindians. As reported in the media, it was told, or it was carried, that no title was approved for indigenous community under their tenure. And my colleague, Yvonne Pearson, the honorable member, made it quite clear that when they boasted about Upakari being titled onto them and the extension, it was work done that when they unceremoniously remove the ALT at that time from their offices, that they took over. And that's one only that they've done. They spent all 5 years sitting, doing what? Only the walls of the offices know. Mr. Speaker, under the People's Progressive Party civic, Amerindian can be assured that it was under the People's Progressive Party civic government that the percentage of land owned privately by Amerindians increased from 6% to 16%. The ALT project, Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, will go down in the history of this House and in the records that the majority of lands titled to indigenous people were all done under the People's Progressive Party civic government. 26 years it took the APNU-AFC to honor the precondition of independence to issue and to secure land for indigenous people. It was only in 1976 that a few was titled, and when in 1990 they were heading to elections, the then leader of the party decided that they will also title orders, hoping that the indigenous people will vote for them. Mr. Speaker, another matter which I believe I want to address is the carbon credit revenue. Guyana finalized, following the return of the PPP civic government to office in August of 2020, and after an extensive national consultation, the PPP Civic Administration expanded the LCDS initiative of 2009 to 2030. Guyana finalized its first commercial sale contract with Hess Corporation for the sale of carbon credit. And this is a first for a small developing country. The multi-year agreement is for 37.5 million REDD Plus jurisdictional carbon credits, consisting of 2.5 million credit per year for each year from 2016 to 2030, with payments for these credits starting in December of 2022 and ending in 2032. The agreement covers about a third of Guyana's current anticipated credit issuance. Guyana is now once again able to advance and to move to phase 2 of our strategic plans. Mr. Speaker, after several months of consultation on the LCDS 2030, it was agreed that 15% of all revenue received from the sale of carbon credit would be paid directly to indigenous and local communities. For the year 2023, this total amounted to $22.5 million, or $4.7 billion Guyana dollars. Mr. Speaker, the full endorsement for this was registered at the February 2023 meeting of Amerindian leaders, following 2 years of consultation prior. Village-led investments, to date 232 village councils and CDCs have withdrawn $3.8 billion and have undertaken 811 projects in the following sectors: agriculture, including cultivation of crops, shade houses, fishing, cattle and livestock rearing; business enterprises and services, internet, electricity from both solar and genset generated; transportation services by the acquisition of minibuses, boats, outboard engines, including ATVs; tourism projects, including eco-lodge, guest house, fully furnished, and beautification of their villages; sports and youth investment. They invested in facilities and cultural groups development. Also, investments are being made by village councils in infrastructure, both social and productive: trails, farm-to-market road, footpaths, other benabs, meeting places, dining halls, multi-purpose building, and the list goes on. Mr. Speaker, clearing the air on what the Honorable Shadow Vincent Henry, member of this Honorable House, that there seemed to be no transparency or accountability, and that government was seeking to control this process, I want the House to know that the 15% was deposited directly into the bank books of the village council, a special bank book, and that the village elected an oversight committee from within the village to provide monitoring and scrutiny over the use of those funds by the village council. And maybe it would have been wise for the honorable member to share some information, because a very close relative of his heads the scrutiny committee or the oversight committee in his village where he resides in Shulinab. So there are mechanisms in place that the village itself, approved by the villagers, are managing their funds. And there is no need for the government to seek to control. Mr. Speaker, sometimes we need to bring the facts to the House, because the nation is watching us. The youths are watching us. The school children are watching us. And they will one day be able to do their own research when they grow up or when they enter university, and then they will look back at you, the opposition, members of the opposition benches, and frown upon how you wasted your time here in this House. Mr. Speaker, update on the Amerindian Act was also another matter which was raised in this House. The government of Guyana, Mr. Speaker, is committed to review the existing primary legislation governing the rights of Amerindians. This exercise is being executed in collaboration with the NTC and supported by the Auditor General's chambers. The review process began with a training of 54 facilitators, 14 NTC executive members, 25 CDOs, 5 MDOs, 15 CSOs, including, Mr. Speaker, 3,663 Amerindian leaders and residents in the location where these trainings were being conducted. Mr. Speaker, trainings were conducted in Region 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, and 9. Mr. Speaker, if the Honorable Shadow would like to examine the APNU AFC track record on the promise to review the Amerindian Act under their 5 years, he can do so. Because in 2017, 2018, 2019, and early 2020, $100 million was spent, and there is not a single report on it. Mr. Speaker, they could not produce a report because, Mr. Speaker, when they turn up to villages, there was like 3 persons sitting on a pavilion that has heard about their visit. And I can give you the experience of Camarang consultation. My colleague who comes from the Upper Mazaruni, Parima village, at that time, he was also a sitting member of his village council. And when the team that was paid $100 million turned up at Camarang, the Tushaus got notice just prior to the arrival and told them very blackly that we cannot speak, we cannot discuss, and we will not consult because you can't come here. I'm not lying, sorry. I'm not misinforming this House, but they could not discuss because it was not a consultation. People came with perceived ideas of what they would like to do. Mr. Speaker, youth development. Under the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs, we pay particular attention to addressing the challenges of indigenous youths. Mr. Speaker, the matter of the CSO once more surfaced in this House, and Mr. Speaker, we had cause to circulate in this House a CD. Maybe we shouldn't have done it, but to clear the air once and for all. The CSOs were employed, engaged by our government, and they were paid up to April. They were not dismissed. In fact, we paid them every 3 months. But because it was campaign time and May was elections, we could not have paid them any longer, any to June or May to June. It would have been the obligation of the incoming government to do so. So, Mr. Speaker, let him produce the check. Just produce the check. We were not in office to cancel any check. And the CD is right here. Mr. Speaker, if you would like me to read it, but they have it, I will not read it. But I'll tell you what, if you had any interest in the young people, in young indigenous youths across this country, particularly those in the hinterland, if you had an interest in them, you would not have disengaged them. 1,972 young people were sent home in June without pay. They were not paid for May, neither June, and they were told not to come to work in the month of July. Mr. Speaker, if you raise this matter again in this House next year, I'll bring the other letter which disbanded them. Mr. Speaker, I will tell you how interested and how caring we are to ensure that indigenous youths benefit in this nation and that they're treated with respect and that they are provided with opportunities. My colleagues before spoke about how they are benefiting in the various hinterland regions on the GOAL scholarship. Also, they have said how many secondary schools that they will build, that this government will continue to build to expand the access of secondary education to growing school children. But I will concentrate on what the Ministry of Amerindian has invested over the last 3 years. Mr. Speaker, we have invested thus far $3,468,400,000 that went into the pockets of the young CSOs that are engaged under the project. This means, Mr. Speaker, that an additional $3.4 billion circulates in the hinterland in the Amerindian villages. It means that the shops, the village shops, are able to find business. It means that young people can provide additional items and services that they may need. It also provides them with an opportunity to have experience at governance, tourism, forestry, education, and also to ensure that they understand how important it is to be part of community development. And not only that, Mr. Speaker, but funds were also expended to train them in the community, and the honorable member has left, but the majority of the training that is taking place for the CSO is conducted at Beena Hill Institute. Mr. Speaker, this government has made Beena Hill Institute the primary location and venue for training CSOs. We have to thank ourselves because the Beena Hill Institute for the Information of this House is fully funded by the government. It may have a genesis in community initiative, but the government pays the administrative staff, it pays for the administration and operation of that institution, it pays for the meals of the students who go there, it pays for their project when they have livestock or vegetable farm.
Honorable Minister, it pays for us to look at the time. You'd need an extension to conclude.
Mr. Speaker, please.
I thought the Honorable Member Sher Duncan was going to move that motion.
Mr. Speaker, may my colleague be given 5 minutes to conclude her presentation.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. You had 3 persons rising for you for such an interesting presentation.
We'll meet up.
Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, we continue to support villages with the presidential grant. That has been a very useful source of funding for villages to address mini and micro projects that they would like to enhance their villages with. Mr. Speaker, every year, and I want to raise this matter here about unfair grant distribution. Whether it is grant for school children, everyone gets. Whether it's grant for support when there is some disaster like flooding or long drought season, every household gets. Mr. Speaker, so when it comes to presidential grant, every village gets. No one is left out. Mr. Speaker, presidential grant, 233 villages annually implement projects using funding under the presidential grant. Mr. Speaker, I want to talk a little bit about the NTC. The NTC, Mr. Speaker, is the representative, the legitimate elected representative of the indigenous people. And I want to tie this in with the Honorable Minister, the Honorable Shadow, Mr. Vincent Henry, question about and comment about how the Minister of Amerindian Affairs is upstaging the APA meetings. I didn't know I was that powerful. However, Mr. Speaker, we have no intention of upstaging anyone's meeting. If they're advocates, they have a role to play. But they must be advocates in a factual way. And when they divert from the facts, this minister will respond to them. Mr. Speaker, the NTC is the highest governing body which comprises of all elected officials. And our government is a partner with them. Guyana is the only country worldwide that sits an entire week to discuss, to have conversation, to dialogue, and to engage with the indigenous leaders who engage government on behalf of their people. Mr. Speaker, our government does not only meet the leaders in the city, but leading from the front. His Excellency goes on outreaches where he meets directly and listens to the people from the various villages. Our cabinet is a cabinet that conducts outreaches. Mr. Speaker, so we will continue to support the NTC, and we should pat ourselves on the back, but we don't beat our own drums. We have established a new modern secretariat for the NTC that costs $140 million. And this year, we have in our budget $7 million additional so that they can provide more extensive furnishing, air conditions, etc., to make their operational headquarters more friendly. Mr. Speaker, tell us what APNU AFC did. They did not issue land title. They did not build a secretariat for the NTC. They did not conduct and manage the funds entrusted to them by this House. And I come to the point where the Honorable Shadow, Mr. Vincent Henry, questioned the accountability of GGMC transfer of funds to the ministry. But I want to read from the Auditor General report. The sum of $865.11 million was expended to pay his HEYS stipend. Mr. Speaker, the ministry did not present progress report for these projects and payments and could not even determine whether the funds were utilized for the intended purposes. And this is only one. You go through 2017, 2018, 2019. Amerindian Development Fund under the APNU AFC government was not accounted for. Huge amount of millions. Mr. Speaker, we continue to support infrastructure-wise the hinterland. And I want to quickly make some points. Mr. Speaker,
Honorable Member,
Region
you won't
1.
be able to quickly make the points. You can quickly wrap up now.
Mr. Speaker, I would want to say that Guyana's economy, Guyana's people should expect from the People's Progressive Party a prosperous and modern country. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. This budget is furthering the activities that is setting the pace for our country to be a shining star in our hemisphere. Well said, Pauline. Mr. Speaker, I would like to add support and to ask this House to support this budget. It is a budget that has everything for everyone.
Well said, Pauline. Excellent, excellent. Excellent. I don't want to hear it. Tell them.
Thank you very much.